Hey guys, Zuri here again, and I wanted to do a quick video in response to one of my buddies on the Tabletop Dungeoneers Discord server, Rivers, over at Rivers RPG YouTube channel. Give him a shout out, tell him Zero sent you if you head on over to his channel. And Rivers posted a video not too long ago about his favorite miniature. And I commented on his video, and I was thinking to myself, like, I have no clue what my favorite miniature is. So I did a little digging with what I have here in my house. Because of the current situation, I really can't go anywhere else. But for the majority, I found a miniature that I actually do feel is probably one of my favorite for probably a bunch of different reasons. But I'll show it to you guys in a sec. But I don't know, I think this miniature is my favorite because of everything I had to do to it, and my skills as a painter had changed at that time, so I was growing as a painter and learning and doing all kinds of new things. And I didn't use airbrush at the time, I just dry brushed everything, painted and dry brushed and stuff like that. So this is one of my game pieces for my Warhammer 40k Tyranid army. And I have a lot of other miniatures. I have thousands of miniatures, but as far as work goes into them and painting them and stuff like that, I don't think I have any that are this, to me, well done. And he's not even finished yet. I just opened up the bag and I was like, Jesus, I got a lot to do with this guy. But I'll give you a quick glance and then we'll take it over to the table and show you guys what's up. But this is it. This is my Tyranid Stone Crusher Carnifex, and this is a Games Workshop model, but it also is a Forge World model, and I'll explain all that in a minute. But we'll get this guy over to the table and we'll give you guys a little bit better look at what this all entails and why I find this to be my favorite miniature. And I have a second runner-up, which I'll show you as well, and I'll go over that too. So surprise, there's two of them. But we'll get to the table and we'll see what you guys think. All right, sit tight. Alright, so you're saying to yourself, why is this model so special? Well, here's a quick look at everything that the model comes with, including some Forge World extras. So if you know the Tyranid army, you know that this Carnifex was one of the first Tyranid models to be created on a 3D CAD program. And it was also one of the first models that came with all this stuff, all these options, weapon options. And a lot of times, like even for myself, most of the carnies that I put together were glued together. I picked a setup, I glued it together, and it just was what it was, and that's just what it was. And like everybody else, like, oh, I'll just get more carnies, and equip them differently. But this one, I decided I was going to try my hand at magnetizing, because that's, back when Earth magnets first started coming into play for 40k models. And I met a guy who had an entire Space Marine army magnetized, and I was pretty impressed with it, so I decided to try it with the Carney. And I had to use some pretty big Earth magnets. You can't really see it on that one. That one either. Let's see, maybe you can see it on the body. There's magnets there. I've got one for the head, I've got one for the armor, I've got one for the tail weapons. So this is the main body. And then you just attach your pieces to it. And I only did it with this one. I should have done it with all of them, but I did it with this one. This was a really daunting task. I mean, it took a lot of time, patience, and getting the polarities right. And I had to dig out some magnets at one point, and, reinsert them. Excuse me, I keep bumping the table there, guys. I apologize. But yeah, it was a pain in the butt to get him completely magnetized and magnetized in the right polarity so that all the parts work together, but not only, you know, would stick to the model, but, you know, work with other parts too, you know what I'm saying? So I could have a combination of whatever I wanted, because at the time you could equip the Carnifex with damn near everything, you know, on here. Not all at once, but you could, you know, you could give them any one of these options easily. So what I'll do is I will put this together for you. We'll get it on the tourney table, and you guys can take a look at it with all the different options. All right, sit tight. All right, so here we have the standard Screamer Killer configuration. He's got the Screamer Killer head, the standard carapace upper armor, and the 2 Sithing Talons, and no tail weapon. Okay, here we have him with the Acid Maw, Spine Bank carapace, and we've got the Crushing Claws and the Sithing Talons, and then we have the Mace Tail configuration. It's pretty good in close combat, pretty good, pretty devastating. Alright, here we have him with the Barbed Strangler and Sithing Talons, and the Regeneration head, and the Spore Cysts carapace armor, again with the Mace Tail. Now, again, you could mix and match this model any which way you want, and I'm just giving you, you know, showing you what I've done with them, but you could do this however you want. I'll show you a couple more combinations, and then I'll show you the final his final form, so to speak. Alright, here we have a very shooty version of him. He's got the spine banks up there on the carapace. He's got the enhanced senses for shooting. He's got a venom cannon, a heavy venom cannon, and he's got the twin-linked devourer arm upgrades from Forge World. And I mean, this one is totally a shooting beast. I mean, the Tyranid don't do the very, you know, they don't have the very best ranged weapons, but this one here is pretty good. You're talking about a lot of shots coming at whoever's there, and the AP is not the greatest, but again, they're not gonna, AP is not gonna matter when you're making 30 saves. Alright, here we have another shooty version. This one is equipped with 2 Devourers and 2 Death Spitters, again with the enhanced senses and the spine bank carapace armor. So another good shooty, close range shooty Carnifex. Didn't give him a tail weapon because this is pretty devastating right here. Doesn't really always need one. I mean, so it's cool. That's why I magnetized everything, so that you wouldn't have to, you don't have to have everything on this one if you don't want to. There you go. Okay, and this is I call it the final form, but it's basically the Forge World Stone Crusher Carnifex. So it comes with this battering ram carapace. I actually added the Tusk Carnifex head with a spike. I put that on there, and you've got these gigantic crushing claws, and then the Sith tail. And I think is really, this is one of the most devastating close combat Carnifexes, because it's gonna, like, the amount of damage it puts out is really high. Doesn't do a lot of hits, but it does do a lot of damage, which is really good. And if it charges with the tusks, it gets that first attack, which is really crucial for a Carnifex. They might have changed it in 8th a little bit, but if I remember correctly, that's pretty much, you know, what it was about with that combination. And, you know, it worked out pretty good. I mean, at least in 5th, 6th, you know, because it was, you know, it took a lot of hits getting there, and it had to get that first attack, otherwise Carnifexes go down pretty fast, unfortunately. If they don't get the first, I mean, they still go down, but if they don't get the first hits, people pretty much take them out. Now, the only other difference between this and what else you could do is you have this attachment, this wrecking ball attachment, and that you just take off one of the claws. There he is. So yeah, you can do your version of the wrecking ball song for this guy, because this was basically designed to take out terrain and vehicles and other things. I mean, Carnifexes are pretty good at taking out vehicles anyway, but this one was a bit more geared towards it. I wish they made a second one for the other side. That would be pretty cool. Maybe they did, I don't know, but I think that's the only side they made. They should have made a second one. That would have been really cool to have them both wrecking ball arms. But there you go. That's my 40K Tyranid Carnifex, one of my favorite models in my collection. You know, I just like the way the carapace came out, and I was experimenting with what to do with the army, because before this it was just black and white with, you know, some dry brushing on the carapace, but then I started adding stripes to the carapace, as you can see here, and I tried to duplicate that. And it's still not finished, but I was going to fade all this in, and then you give it a nice wash, and then it'll all blend really well. But like I said, he's still a work in progress. So he's one, like I said, one of my favorite models. Just the look of it, you know, it just has that appearance of scary as hell. All right, at sit tight, guys. I'm going to show you guys my second favorite model in my entire collection, and this one has a really messed up history. So sit tight. Alright guys, here is one of my all-time favorite models. And again, it's another Tyranid model, but when you hear the story, you'll understand why. This was Forge World's very first Tyranid model. Well, no, not really their first, but this was their first Hive Tyrant, and it was the first flying Hive Tyrant model. And he's obviously a bit more converted than the standard flying Hive Tyrant, but you know, I had to do a lot of work on this guy, and you know, you're probably wondering why he's leaning so far forward, and that's another interesting story for this model. But just real quick, I like the way I painted this model. My intention initially with the Hive Tyrants and the HQ choices in my Tyranid army was to paint them brighter, little white, you know, more white than black on the models, because I wanted them to stand out as HQs, and I felt like the HQs probably had more, you know, adaptability than the smaller Tyranid. So I felt like, you know, I wanted the whole army to be on snow bases and a frosty theme, you know, more like they're attacking Fenris or something like that. So I went with a whiter theme for the more higher ups, the HQs, and some of the elites have a little bit more white, but primarily this is the whitest. This and the standing Hive Tyrant I have are the whitest ones I have. So that's why I went with that paint scheme. And normally, as you can see here, I have some dead Space Marines there. I normally do not like Carnage on bases. I'm not a fan of Carnage at all. I know people do it, and it's fine, it's cool. I do not like it. This is the only model in my entire Tyranid army that has Carnage on the base, and I don't even like it. I have to actually finish those guys. I just realized that they are not actually done, so I gotta finish them. But he's got two dead Space Marines there, torn in half. There's a little bit of intestines and gore sticking out there. I'll show you a little bit closer up in a second. Again, I did not like to have to do that, but I wanted something special on this base. This model was very, very expensive from Forge World. It was my very first Forge World purchase, so again, this has some nostalgia for me. The biggest thing with this model, one of the reasons why I love and hate this model so much, one day I was out at the club, the gaming club with the guys. We were building, painting, playing, whatever we were doing. This stayed at home because I just didn't need it, and I wasn't using it for the day. He was painted up, he was done as far as I was concerned, and like I said, I just got to finish those Marines. You know, normal day, went home. I went to go put my stuff away on my work table. I had a really small little standing work table in the living room, and I went to go put my stuff underneath for my club stuff, my gaming stuff, my paint, you know, toolbox and stuff. And this guy was sitting on the table, and I was looking at him, and I was, you know, because I was looking down on him, and I was like, man, something's wrong. It doesn't look right, because the model was facing the way it was facing, but the head was looking up at me. Like, so if you see now where it's positioned, that was just odd. It was like looking up. I was like, wait a minute, what the hell's wrong with this model? So I went to go grab him, and when I touched the head, literally, I kid you not, the whole thing just collapsed and fell apart. The wings fell off, the torso was broken, it was broken at the legs, and as you can see, these are really, really thin, spindly bird-like legs, right? And it was snapped here and here. The torso was snapped. The wings were both snapped. This arm was snapped off, you know. And the tail was busted. The head was broken. And I was just like, I was in shock. I was like, what in the hell just happened to this guy? He just disintegrated. Turns out my daughter, she was very young. She had a bunch of friends over. They were all goofing around before they all went home. One of them whipped a water bottle, a full water bottle, at my daughter. My daughter moved out the way, and he took a water bottle to the face and didn't make it. So needless to say, I was extremely, extremely upset. I mean, I was more so than mad. I was really disappointed, and I was just hurt at the fact that this model cost me so much money and so much time. So I set to getting it back. You know, I put it aside because I was just frustrated, and I didn't look at it for months and months and months and months. And one of my buddies was like, "You got to get back at it." My buddy Joe, and he was like, "I'll help you. I'll help you green stuff. Or we'll get it back together." And he's phenomenal when it comes to fabricating and green stuff and wiring and all that stuff. So we got it pinned back together. We had to create the back end of the leg here for this leg. We had to create the talons in the back of the foot because it was completely, when I got the model, there was already an air bubble in the foot. So that was almost completely gone, that back talon. So we had to create a new one. We had to put a new tongue in because the tongue was completely destroyed. I wasn't going to fix the tail. I just left it at the very end, just blank. And because of the way it was pinned and the way it was green stuffed, you see he's leaning extremely far forward now on the base. He should be leaning further back, but he's not now. I mean, it is what it is. And I messed up. I actually put him on a wooden base from Michael's. I should have never done that. I should have just waited and got a 60 millimeter base and put him on that, because the base is bowed now, so you can see he teeter-totters. So I almost never use this model just because it's so fragile. But then it gave me the opportunity after it broke to actually upgrade, because originally this model only came with the wings and the scything talons, and that's how the configuration was for the Hive Tyrant back then. But the newer books, you know, the newer editions, he was able to have separate arm weapons as well as the wings. The wings weren't considered weapons, they were just wings. So I was able to add in the bone sword and the lash whip from one of the other Tyrant kits that I got. You know, so I was able to give him the added weapons. These are the plastic, from the plastic Hive Tyrant that came out, because it was a metal one that was standing, and then they released a plastic one of the same kit. So I got them, and I was able to put the lash whip and the bone sword in, which really, to me, gave it that really, you know, alien Tyranid xenomorph look. So yeah, that's the story of the Flying Hive Tyrant. And this Tyrant has actually been all over the place. I had a buddy who had a gaming shop called Games and Things. His name's Al. Great guy, a buddy of mine. Love you. Shouts out. He had a display case, and he asked me if I had any, you know, if I wanted to put models up. And I was like, yeah. I mean, I was surprised that he even asked, because I didn't think, you know, he held my painting in that high regard. But yeah, I put the guy in the display case. He was in the display case all the way up until the shop closed, and even after, because I finally, after I had my surgery just recently this year, and he's been gone. This guy's been gone for like 5 years almost. So after I had my surgery, I called him up. I said, "Hey, can I get my Tyrant back?" Yeah. So he met up with me, and he brought the Tyrant back. So this guy's been all over the place. He's been in many games. You know, he's visited a lot of stores. A lot of people have seen him. So he's got a big history for this, for a model that was like literally almost destroyed. And back then, the resin that Forge World used was that yellowy, chalky, brittle resin. So this is a very brittle model. He's very fragile. So you can see his little horns here, kind of like jacked up on the ends here. But basically, I don't use him anymore in any games, unless I'm going to play Apocalypse and I need another Flying Hive Tyrant. I don't plan on using this guy. This is a shelf queen now, because he's just so fragile and there's just so much work to do. I actually magnetized the wings because they broke, so I had to rebuild the shoulders with green stuff and then magnetize them. And I didn't magnetize or green stuff any of this, by the way. Just a caveat. This is my buddy Joe, who did all the work to get this guy at least this decent, you know. But I had to we resculpted. I had to repaint everything and, you know, stuff like that. But like I said, I mean, I got to finish the Space Marines on here. Otherwise, he's done, and he's just going on the shelf, and he's going to be my shelf queen, unfortunately. But it is what it is. You know, like I said, he's got a very interesting history, and I wanted to share that with you guys. But anyway, guys, that's my favorite. Those are my favorite models from my Warhammer 40K Tyranid army. So I want to give a shout out to Rivers from Rivers RPG for suggesting that we do this. I appreciate it, man. And guys, if you get the chance, check out his channel. He's just getting started. He's doing a bunch of miniature stuff, done a bunch of Dungeons and Dragons stuff, and he's part of our Discord group, the Tabletop Dungeoneers. I'll put the little guy right here this time. You can check us out there, join the group, tell them Zero sent you, and we talk about everything from Dungeons and Dragons to 40K to Gundams to RC cars, everything. You know, there's a lot of discussion, a lot of talent there, a lot of people with different skills sets and crafters, builders, you know, gamers, dungeon masters. So, and they're from all over the world, Canada, Australia. It's awesome. So come check us out. Tell them Zero sent you, and join the chat. All right, guys. As always, like, subscribe, share, and thank you for watching.